Welcome to the IPL, Eagle Valley Combined Cycle Gas Turbine Plant. The safety of our employees, contract workers on our site, and the public is critical to the work we do here at IPL. Your employer has established safe work practices for the protection of you and others who may be working nearby. We expect that you and all of our contractors follow these safe work practices established by your employers and IPL for this job site. The following video outlines some of the safe work practices established by IPL that you will be expected to follow. These safe work practices and our safety expectations have been discussed in more detail with your supervisor. If you are performing your work activities and you are unsure of the safe work practices to follow, ask your supervisor or your IPL contractor administrator. Also, if you are in a situation that you believe is not safe, you need to exercise your stop work authority to protect yourself and the people around you. Here are some examples of safe work practices for which you may have questions. The personal protective equipment for use for a particular activity. The selection of a proper anchorage point for fall protection. Proper lockout and tagout procedures. And proper practices to follow when working in confined spaces. Do not take any shortcuts when it comes to safety. No job is so important and no service is so urgent that we cannot take the time to perform our work safely. Safety is our first value at IPL, and working safely is a requirement for anyone working with us or for us. Your family and friends are counting on you to come home safely and free from harm. Thank you for your attention and your commitment to working safely. Every day, millions of lives hang in the balance as serious workplace risks present themselves. From the obvious threats to the too often overlooked work hazards, the common thread that binds those facing risks on the job is the importance of safety compliance. Workplace safety is a subject that cannot be taken for granted and will not be taken lightly. The contractor rules provided in this program do not replace your existing safety and health programs. Rather, they serve to enhance the safety measures already in place, and even more importantly, they serve to protect you. If you do not follow IPL's established safety rules, you will be reported to the IPL Contractor Administrator and will be subject to discipline that may result in your removal from the job site. While conducting work at IPL's Eagle Valley plant, you must comply with all federal and state regulations and IPL's safety rules that apply to the work being performed. While on our site, we want your visit to be safe and a healthy one. IPL Eagle Valley entry and exit are through the main security gate. There are two ways to enter: escorted by an IPL contractor administrator, non-escorted, badged and approved through authorized IPL security, and must have a CCS and TWIC card. While on site, no photos may be taken without prior approval by an IPL contractor administrator. Smoking is only allowed in designated areas. Random drug testing may be required. Due to security concerns, photo identification will be required before entering. All vehicles and personnel entering or exiting our site are subject to search. Movement throughout the plant. The plant speed limit of 15 miles per hour must be followed at all times. If you need to drive equipment and materials to your location, you must make arrangements through the contractor administrator. The contractor administrator will inform you of appropriate parking locations for your personal or company vehicles. Contractors may not transport employees in the beds of trucks while on the IPL premises. Personal protective equipment. All personal protective equipment must be appropriate for the hazards present. This includes, but is not limited to, eyewear, hard hats, respirators, hearing protection, personal fall arrest devices, protective clothing, and protective footwear. Approved hard hats and approved eyewear with side shields, including prescription eyewear, must be worn at all times in construction areas and in and around the power plant and other buildings except in exempt areas. You'll be expected to have the minimum PPE to be on site. steel-toed boots, high-vis hard hat, safety glasses, FR clothing category 2, hearing protection on your person at all times. This is the minimum PPE, and depending upon the project, additional PPE or procedures may be required. Your escort or contract administrator can provide additional information. General behavior. Any contractor's employee who appears unable to perform his or her job in a safe manner or exhibits any type of behavior inappropriate for the workplace, including horseplay, will be reported to the employee's supervisor for evaluation and possible removal from the site. All contractors performing work on or visiting IPL work sites and/or facilities must comply with the IPL Substance Abuse Program for contractors. For example, IPL policy prohibits reporting to perform work on IPL property while under the influence of drugs or alcohol, consuming or possessing alcohol or unauthorized drugs while on IPL property, performing any work when using prescription medication that can cause drowsiness or otherwise impair the employee's ability to perform the work in a safe manner. IPL policy also prohibits firearms and other weapons on the premises at all times. Cardinal safety rules are IPL's rules that, if violated, have a high probability of resulting in serious adverse outcomes. Contractors must ensure that employees working under their control do not violate these cardinal safety rules. Failure to comply with these rules will result in immediate corrective action for you, and if IPL determines it's appropriate, your employer, up to and including termination from the current IPL project and removal from consideration for future IPL projects. IPL cardinal safety rules are: never operate an energy isolation device that is locked and/or tagged out. Never remove a lock and/or a tag from an energy isolation. Never work within minimum safe electrical distance without following all live line procedures. If a line is not grounded or under lotto, it must be considered energized and treated as such when working in its proximity. Never enter a confined space without conducting a hazard assessment for atmospheric and physical hazards. Never work at an elevated work position in an aerial device, bucket trucks, and articulating boom lifts without using an approved personal fall arrest system. Never enter trenches and/or excavations 5 feet or more in depth without the authorization of an on-site competent person as defined by OSHA. Contractors intending to bring any chemicals must be pre-approved by the contractor administrator, provide SDS, and must comply with all applicable state and federal regulations and IPL requirements, including but not limited to the following. The contractor must ensure all containers of hazardous chemicals under their control are labeled with product identity, health and physical hazard information, product manufacturer, the name of the contractor controlling the chemical. The contractor is also responsible for taking the steps to ensure the safety of personnel where hazardous materials are used, stored, or transported. All chemicals brought on site must have accompanying SDS. All flammable and combustible chemicals must be stored where they are not subject to hot work or other sources of ignition. Data sheets for all chemicals by IPL are available upon request. IPL uses the GHS labeling system for all non-original portable containers. Chemical spills and hazardous waste. The contractor must immediately report to the contractor administrator any spill or release of a hazardous chemical, substance, or waste at any IPL facility or work site. Hot work. Contractors performing welding, cutting, burning operations, or spark-producing grinding must comply with state and federal regulations and IPL requirements, including but not limited to the following. An IPL written hot work permit must be used. Level 1 areas are high hazardous areas like cooling tower areas. A dedicated, continuous fire watch must be provided for 60 minutes after the completion of cutting or welding in Level 1 areas, and 3 hourly rechecks of the area must be completed. Level 2 areas are areas where combustible materials are present or may be accessible by sparks or slag. Examples of combustible materials include cable trays, insulation on conductors, visqueen, or scaffold boards. A dedicated continuous fire watch must be provided for 30 minutes after the completion of cutting or welding in Level 2 areas. Level 3 areas are areas where no combustibles are present. An example of a Level 3 area would be a gravel parking lot designed as a cutting or welding area. An inspection of the area must be provided 30 minutes after the job completion to ensure the area remains safe. Fire blankets and caution tape must be used as required to prevent people, flammable or combustible materials from coming into contact with sparks and slag from hot work operations. Hydrogen lines painted red must not be used for welding ground. Torch carts. When transporting bottles or carts, the regulators must be removed and cylinders capped. If torch carts are not going to be used within a 24-hour period, they must be stored properly by removing the regulators, capping the cylinders, and either separating the bottles by at least 20 feet or placing them within a 30-minute fire-rated barrier. Compressed gas cylinders. All compressed gas cylinders must be stored in an upright, secured position with regulators removed and protective valve caps in place. Compressed gas fuels and oxidizers not in use should be stored separately with a minimum separation distance of 20 feet. If fuel gases and oxidizers must be stored together, a non-combustible barrier of at least 5 feet or 1.5 meters high, having a fire resistance rating of at least 1/2 hour, must be used. The Eagle Valley Plant Hazardous Energy Control Program is commonly referred to as the Lockout-Tagout Program. Additionally, clearance permits are used to track both equipment isolation information and authorized personnel working on isolated equipment. A clearance permit is documentation combined with a method to properly isolate equipment from hazardous energy. It is imperative that communication takes place between IPL and contractors to ensure everyone's safety when working on or around hazardous energy sources. Prior to start of work activities requiring equipment isolation, the contractor must request a clearance from the IPL contractor administrator to ensure appropriate de-energizing of equipment. All equipment isolation will be performed by an IPL representative, then inspected by the contractor. Locks are used to secure energy isolation devices. Tags only may be used when the isolation device cannot accept a lock. All workers must be locked onto a lockbox or equipment isolation point to ensure their individual protection from hazardous energy sources. Specifically, contractors and subcontractors working at the Eagle Valley plant shall comply with all the following lockout-tagout procedures. Contractors must verify the equipment is properly isolated through a walk-down of the clearance isolation point or points prior to signing on to LOTO. Sign on to the clearance permit. All locks on the IPL master lock boxes must display the employee's name and contractor's name for the requested clearance. Contractors may not lock onto an IPL remote lockbox. They must be assigned to their own lockbox. All LOTO policies will be communicated to you by your contractor administrator. Ask your contractor administrator for instructions. Contractor or loaner locks are green and keyed individually. Used by a contractor, the tag or label will identify the contractor's company name and the contractor's employee's name. You must receive advanced written approval from the IPL contractor administrator to use personal lockout-tagout procedures. and this approval must be documented on the contractor's project-specific form. The IPL contractor administrator must first place their lock on the piece of equipment to be de-energized before allowing the contractor to place their lock. Never place a lock or tag on IPL equipment without proper authorization. Examples where FR clothing may be required include, but are not limited to, validating electrical energy isolating devices. Contractors must ensure that their employees are provided with and properly use personal protective equipment to ensure protection from shock and arc flash hazards. Barricades must be used in conjunction with warning signs to prevent or limit access to work areas containing live parts. Barricades must be placed no closer than the flash protection boundary, which is at least 4 feet from live parts unless the equipment is labeled otherwise. However, contractors must comply with the posted calculated distance for the flash protection boundary. If barricades and signs do not provide sufficient protection or cannot be used, an attendant must be assigned to warn and protect unqualified people. The primary duty of the attendant will be to keep non-qualified people out of the work area where electrical hazards exist. The attendant must remain in the area as long as there is a potential electrical hazard. When live parts cannot be placed into a de-energized state because the de-energizing produces greater hazards or it is infeasible due to equipment design or operational limitations, the task to be performed shall be considered energized electrical work and require the completion of electrical live work permit before the work may begin. The electrical live work permit must be completed by the qualified person who will perform the task and approved by the contractor's management representative. It must be then delivered to the IPL contractor administrator for review and approval before the work begins. The approved permit must be reviewed during the pre-job briefing by all people working on the task to help ensure all safety precautions are taken and appropriate personnel protection equipment is used. The intent of the project-specific form is a documented means for IPL to exchange safety information with contractors performing maintenance or construction work activities on IPL property or an IPL-controlled work site. The form identifies all hazard conditions known to IPL that the contractor may encounter while performing work within the scope of the project. The form identifies IPL's safety-related expectations with respect to these potential hazards. All OSHA-mandated hazard information that is exchanged between IPL and the contractor is identified on the form. Confined spaces, competent persons, etc. If the scope of the project changes, new and/or previously unrecognized hazards become known to either IPL or the contractor, or if the contractor's competent qualified person changes, a new or revised form must be completed. IPL requires that a documented pre-job briefing, including a job safety analysis, be completed at least once per shift for all jobs and repeated anytime a scope of the work changes. All contractor employees must actively participate and ensure that all potential hazards are eliminated or mitigated. This pre-job briefing must be accessible to all employees at the job site and available for review. While on the premises, you must provide electrical ground fault protection. This includes extension cords and when working in wet or damp areas. If you have any questions, see your supervisor or the contractor administrator. All barricades must be tagged with an information tag identifying the date the barricade was erected. You are responsible for placing the barricade and listing on the tag the purpose of the barricade. IPL does not consider warding tape to be a hard physical barrier and will not allow it to be used to physically isolate a hazardous condition. If the scope of the work requires the removal of existing guardrails, handrails, floor grading, or other physical barriers, the IPL contractor administrator must approve such removal in advance. Barriers that have been removed to facilitate work must be properly replaced as soon as the work is completed. Unguarded openings must be attended at all times. All contractors must receive authorization from the contractor administrator before performing in work areas posted as dangerous or hazardous. Caution or warning tape must be used to signal dangerous areas of hazardous work. Caution or warning tape must include an informational tag that lists the name of the person who hung the tape and the date, time, and purpose for the barrier. Whoever is controlling the area with red or yellow tape should put their direct contact phone number on the tag. If a hazard is created that requires a hard barricade, all hard barricades shall meet OSHA requirements. For your protection, you are required to stay in the assigned work location unless you receive authorization from the contractor administrator to enter another area of the facility. You must immediately report all contractor-related incidents, including accidents requiring medical attention, property damage, and learning opportunities or close calls to the IPL contractor administrator. A serious injury is defined as any injury and/or illness that is OSHA recordable. A learning opportunity or near miss is defined as a work-related, unintended, unplanned, and unexpected event that could have but did not result in personal injury requiring treatment for more than first aid. A learning opportunity may also be an incident or action that, left unaddressed, could result in personal injury. A learning opportunity is an opportunity to improve environmental health and safety practices. The contractor administrator may periodically authorize contractor use of IPL equipment, provided the contractor employee is qualified and trained in its safe operation. An equipment liability waiver form must be completed and signed by the contractor's foreman or superintendent. The contractor must conduct and document a daily inspection of mobile equipment, including but not limited to forklifts, JLGs, scissor lifts, and cranes. Operators of mobile equipment must wear hard hats and safety glasses unless the equipment has a fully enclosed cab. Mobile equipment must be equipped with backup alarms whenever possible. When not possible, a spotter must be utilized to ensure the safe movement of the equipment, or an audible alarm, such as a horn, must be sounded whenever the equipment is moved in the reverse direction or in areas where people are present. Areas where lifting is taking place or where suspended loads exist must be appropriately marked with caution tape to effectively prevent people from walking into the area, including the use of a spotter. If you are operating a mobile crane or any other boom-equipped heavy equipment requiring a boom to be extended near electrical lines or equipment, a qualified employee must first identify the voltage present, verify the electrical status of the lines or equipment, and provide you with the applicable safe work clearances you must maintain. If the voltage is unknown, minimum required clearance is 20 feet. You must follow OSHA regulations and manufacturer's instructions for crane operations, including, but not limited to, critical lift plans must be developed by a qualified person and then submitted to the IPL contractor administrator for review and approval before crane operation. All parties involved must conduct a meeting prior to any critical lift to ensure that employees know how to perform the lift safely. Eagle Valley utilizes a permit system for excavations. Your IPL representative will guide you through the permit process. Permits ensure underground utilities have been identified and soil conditions assessed. Identify the proper use and sloping and benching for the work. and determine the need for a rescue team. Your employer must provide a competent person when performing excavations and/or trenching operations as required by federal and state OSHA standards and IPL. A competent person must submit to the IPL Contractor Administrator a completed IPL excavations and trenching work permit prior to commencement of the excavation work. This facility contains many OSHA-defined confined spaces. All confined spaces on IPL property are permit required. IPL uses the term high hazard for permit required spaces. Additionally, the contractor must meet the following requirements. Perform your own air monitoring prior to initial entry. Re-entering monitoring when the space has been left unattended. And continuous monitoring for high hazard confined workspace. All readings must be logged on the permit. The written permit must be posted outside the entry to the space and made available for review. Inform the contractor administrator immediately when contractor employees and/or work operations creates an atmospheric health or serious physical hazard to which IPL employees or contractor employees are exposed. A full body harness must be worn by all entrants during confined space operations. Qualified rescue teams are required to be signed on to the entry permit for all high hazard, permit required confined spaces. The contractor is responsible for training and providing the rescue team. A communication channel with the assigned rescue team must be established prior to entering the confined space. The rescue team is required to have a radio and must document on the permit the name of all entrants and their time of entry into and exit out of the confined space. The contractor must implement and document a fall management plan using the IPL authorization to work at heights permit to provide 100% fall protection for employees under its control who are working at elevations of 6 feet or greater. The plan must either eliminate fall hazards or provide for employee protection in accordance with ANSI Z.359 family of standards, IPL requirements, and state and federal OSHA regulations. Fall management planning addresses the use of personal fall arrest systems, scaffolding, walking work surfaces, ladders, floors, wall openings, and rescue. The use of body belts is prohibited on IPL work sites. A full body harness with a shock absorbing lanyard not more than 6 feet long is to be used. When appropriate, retractable lifelines may be used instead of shock absorbing lanyards. All snap hooks and carabiners must have a 3,600 pound or higher gauge strength rating. All components of a fall arrest system, including but not limited to anchorage connector, shock absorbing lanyard, self-retracting lifeline, full body harness, must be worn from the same fall protection equipment manufacturer and compatible. No mixing and matching of components from different fall protection equipment manufacturers will be allowed. Large throat snap hooks shall not be connected to standard size D-rings or similar objects. Large throat snap hooks may only be used on fixed structural elements such as rebar or cross members that are not shaved in a way that can capture the gait of a hook or place the body of the large throat snap hook in a transverse load. Only approved anchorage points are to be used. Conduits, pipelines, and handrails are not approved anchorage points. Steel anchorage connection must be validated using the FPPI anchorage point selection software or a drawing stamped by a professional engineer trained as a qualified person for ANSI Z.359.0 definition and ANSI Z.359.2 standards for new structures. Anchorage points in concrete or attached to wooden structures must be approved by both a qualified person and IPL. Anchorage points must be installed at dorsal D-ring, shoulder height, or higher. Anchorage points at feet level are unacceptable for a fall arrest application and may not be used. Any questions about proper anchorage points may be addressed with the IPL Contractor Administrator before proceeding with the scope of work. Contractors must provide a competent person in fall management to address the approval and use of fall protection equipment for their employees. All scaffolding must be erected and dismantled under the control of and approved for use by a competent person who is designated by the contractor. The IPL 3 tag, red, yellow, and green scaffolding system must be used on all scaffolds. The IPL red tag is required when erecting or dismantling the scaffolding or when the scaffolding has a defective or damaged scaffolding component. The IPL yellow tag is required when guardrails, midrails, or top rails cannot be installed and/or there is incomplete planking. Fall protection is to be used when scaffolds are yellow tagged. Your employer's competent person must list on the yellow tag the required anchorage point for fall protection. The IPL green tag is required when the scaffold working level is fully planked and top rails and mid rails are installed. Green tag scaffolds do not require fall protection. Scaffolds must be erected to a green tag status if possible. When the height of an access ladder is more than 10 feet, or a co-worker can fall to a lower elevation, the contractor must install a self-retracting lifeline with a tag line at the top of the ladder. All ladders must meet OSHA requirements and be used for the purpose for which they are designed. Ladders must be in good condition and secured or stable prior to use. Please note that some jobs requiring the use of a ladder will require fall protections. Contractors working from an aerial lift, bucket truck, articulating boom lift, or other similar pieces of equipment are required to be tied off using a full body harness with a self-retracting lifeline or a shock-absorbing lanyard no more than 6 feet in length. The shock-absorbing lanyard must be adjusted for proper clearance when the clearances are less than 18.5 feet. IPL fully complies with all environmental laws. Ensure proper disposal of all waste. Comply with IPL spill response and reporting program. Any waste disposal container must be approved by a contractor administrator. The plant public address system is the primary notification of plant emergencies and equipment startup. There are 2 muster locations, one at the security guard house and the other at the water treatment building. Tornado shelters are available. The IPL emergency tones are: fire alarm is a siren, hazmat alarm is a warble, medical alarm is a gated siren, severe weather is a slow beep. For reference to alarm tones and emergency contacts at this plant, stickers are available for your hard hats. All of us at IPL want you to be able to go home healthy and safe to all your family and friends.